Tariq and the domestication of sheep. In the grand narrative of humanity, one of the most significant chapters is that of animal domestication. This process not only radically altered the course of human life, but also served as a turning point in our species' evolution. Just as we saw in Layla's tale and her wonderful bond with the goat, this act of taming wild creatures marked a defining moment for humanity. Like Layla's story of goat domestication, which illustrated the profound connection between humans and nature, this tale of sheep domestication takes us back in time to the Stone Age, particularly to the late stages known as the Neolithic period. Thus, following this story, we will uncover not only a chronicle of the past, but also a profound tribute to our close relationship with the animal world. If you recall, in the tale of goat domestication, the obstacle was Layla's parents' desire to eat the goats, and it was only Layla's big heart that spared their lives. In the story of sheep domestication, the major obstacle was their timid nature and their tendency to act solely as a flock, devoid of individual initiatives. Let's begin our story. Tariq was a 16-year-old boy who lived alone because his parents had passed away when he was still young. He lived in northern Mesopotamia, in a fertile region crisscrossed by rivers like the Euphrates and the Tigris, which provided water for irrigation and agriculture. The vast plains were mainly cultivated for crops such as wheat and barley, and the climate was predominantly arid, with hot summers and milder winters. Tariq's relatives were mainly involved in agriculture, and additionally, some of them developed pottery techniques and stone processing for construction and tools. The communities in this region where he lived were among the first to establish permanent settlements and develop primitive forms of social organization, but Tariq was poorer and lived from day to day. And not only was he poor, but many regarded him as somewhat odd, for he had the habit of wandering for hours on end, hands clasped behind his back, passing by people sometimes without even noticing them, lost in thought. He had the habit of wandering everywhere, but he especially loved wooded areas, where wild sheep and goats roamed. He always had a fondness for sheep, but they were so skittish that he could never get close enough to lay a hand on them. Yet he pondered much. At night, he dreamed of lambs, and by day, he schemed of ways to catch one. He attempted countless times to approach them with slow steps, but to no avail. Then he tried with movements so slow, yet even when he was a bit closer in a second they all fled from him. One day he had an idea he hadn't tried before, and it turned out to be brilliant. He went into the woods, and when he got as close to the herd of sheep as he could without them fleeing, he sat down on the ground and in a soft voice began to speak to them. He said all sorts of nonsense that came to his mind, then he spoke to them as if he were talking to people, but always in a gentle tone. The impact on the sheep was immediate and immense. They all stopped chewing and listened intently to Tariq's voice. Then, slowly but surely, a rather large and incredibly beautiful sheep began to approach him. It broke away from the group and went to him. It looked long into Tariq's face, and he slowly raised his hand and stroked its head. After a while, the sheep returned to the group, and they all resumed chewing. Tariq returned home very happy and slept until the next day like a little child. The next day, he went to the sheep again, and the scene repeated itself exactly as the day before. Tariq got the sheep used to him every day by speaking to them kindly, sometimes feeding them by hand. Meanwhile, at home, he prepared a special place to keep them if he succeeded in bringing them home. And indeed, in the end, one by one, they allowed themselves to be tied to Tariq and taken home with him because they had come to trust him. He became the happiest man of all and the first shepherd in that region. Now he could walk with the sheep from morning till evening. No one thought he was crazy anymore. Instead, many learned from him how to tend the sheep and what to do with their milk and wool. He encouraged them to treat the animals well, telling them that animals don't understand our facial expressions. It's useless to smile at them because they don't understand from that we have good intentions towards them. Instead, if we speak to them gently, rarely, and in a soft voice, they will immediately understand what we want to tell them. In the end, Tariq showed that true connection and understanding between humans and animals can be achieved through patience, kindness, and a gentle voice, reminding us that empathy and compassion can bridge even the widest gaps between species. The events in the story are fiction, just like the character Tariq. Historical truths are as follows. 1. The domestication of animals was a significant step in human history and the development of civilizations. 2. Sheep domestication likely first occurred in the Neolithic era in southern Anatolia, northern Mesopotamia, and Iran. 3. During the same period, other animals were also domesticated, including goats, the auroch, buffalo, gaur, and pigs. The question you can answer in the comments is, why did the wild sheep allow themselves to be captured by Tariq?